Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about Facebook because some pretty crazy things have come out. I don't know if you guys have heard about the Facebook whistleblower that recently came forward and exposed the company for a number of different things, including research from the company that states that their platforms and services adversely affect the mental health, I guess, of teenagers and other users. The whistleblower continued to allege Facebook of basically loosening these restrictions that they'd built up to counter hate and misinformation on their platform after the US presidential election to prioritize their platform's growth over user safety and security, and making sure that verifiable information was on the platform. And basically, a massive story has kind of unfolded, and Facebook really kind of has some explaining to do. A lot of questions have popped up, so this all kind of really unfolds, especially from a 60 Minutes episode that recently aired with the whistleblower. By the way, her name is Frances Haugen. She is the person who kind of exposed all of this information about Facebook. Now, this all kind of, I guess, really unfolded when an anonymous former employee had filed complaints with federal law enforcement against Facebook, saying that the research Facebook had done within their own teams showed that hate had been amplified on the platform, misinformation was basically everywhere, and political unrest was common, but the company was hiding all of this information not only from the general public, but also to investors and the government as well. One of the complaints in specific is accusing Facebook's Instagram, which, if you didn't know, Facebook owns Instagram, of basically harming the mental health of young teenage girls with their service. Now, it turned out she quit in May, and she actually brought a bunch of private Facebook research that she had copied, a complete trove, I guess, of documents that showed up in the Wall Street Journal last month, and then she revealed her identity on 60 Minutes to kind of explain the backstory of why she decided to do this, what she felt was necessary, who she is. She secretly copied tens of thousands of pages of Facebook internal research. She says evidence shows that the company is lying to the public about making significant progress against hate, violence, and misinformation. One study she found from this year says, quote, "We estimate that we may action as little as 3 to 5% of hate and about 0.6% of V&I, or violence and incitement, on Facebook, despite being the best in the world at it." To quote from another one of the documents you brought out, quote, "We have evidence from a variety of sources that hate speech, divisive political speech, and misinformation on Facebook and the family of apps are affecting societies around the world. When we live in an information environment that's full of angry, hateful, polarizing content, it erodes our civic trust, it erodes our faith in each other, it erodes our ability to want to care for each other. The version of Facebook that exists today is tearing out our societies, tearing them apart, and causing ethnic violence around the world. Ethnic violence including Myanmar in 2018 when the military used Facebook to launch a genocide." Frances Haugen told us that she was recruited by Facebook in 2019. She says she agreed to take the job only if she could work against misinformation because she had lost a friend to online conspiracy theories. So, I mean, does this really surprise anybody? I mean, if you've seen the other leaks and everything that have happened from Facebook, they have been kind of a shady company. I mean, and of course, let's be fair, pretty much all of these massive tech companies are shady. They do weird things. I mean, even here on YouTube. Let's not pretend Google, who owns YouTube, is not one of the shadiest tech companies in the world. But this is kind of insane. I mean, Facebook has been facing this as a constant problem, I guess, on their platform for years now, for probably about 5 at least now. I remember even back during the 2016 election, there was a lot of beef about, the misinformation and the ability, I guess, to use Facebook to influence people's opinions on a massive scale with fake information or over-exaggerated facts and things like that. So this has been a recurring issue, and you would think that it would be in the best interest, I guess, of Facebook to actually take this head on. Not only would they build a better product, they would have a lot less questioning from the government, the people who use their platform would be happier. You would think it'd be all around beneficial, but apparently it's a lot more profitable for Facebook to kind of let these things happen. So let's go ahead and I guess kind of break this all down. So when it comes down to the public view, I guess, because, there's been multiple stories that have kind of unfolded in which Facebook looks bad, right? Like they have to take responsibility for misinformation or whatever, right? So what they'll do is, they put on this big, I guess, like propaganda campaign almost, where they act, they have Mark Zuckerberg come out, we're doing whatever we can to face these problems. We're addressing this head on. No more will we stand for this on Facebook. We have to make sure the people are getting the best with our product, right? They do this thing where they come out in front of Congress. These fucking idiots don't know what to ask them. And they make Facebook look like the good guy, right? They make them look like they're the people who should be trusted. But in reality, they have all of this research that shows that they're harming people, that their products are harming people. And in case you didn't know, they're talking about how this is negatively impacting teenage girls' mental health. Remember the fact that even just a few weeks ago, Facebook was prioritizing making a version of Instagram for children, okay? The platform that is supposedly worse than all the other social medias at keeping people's, mental health, I guess, a priority, was going to have an app dedicated to children, designed for children, an algorithm for children. Thankfully, these plans have been called off, and especially with this news now, probably not a good time to try and reintroduce that one, but at the same time, it highlights what this company is and what they do, man. So Facebook says some of the safety systems remained, but after the election, Facebook was used by some to organize the January 6th insurrection. Prosecutors cite Facebook posts as evidence, photos of armed partisans, and text including, "By bullet or ballot restoration of the Republic is coming." Extremists used many platforms, but Facebook is a recurring theme. After they attacked Facebook's, employees raged on in an internal message board copied by Haugen. "Haven't we had enough time to figure out how to manage discourse without enabling violence? We looked for positive comments and found this. I don't think our leadership team ignores data, ignores dissent, ignores truth. But that drew this reply. Welcome to Facebook. I see you just joined in November 2020. We have been watching. Wishy-washy actions of a company leadership for years now. Colleagues cannot conscious working for a company that does not do more to mitigate the negative effects of its platform. Facebook essentially amplifies the worst of human nature. It's one of those unfortunate consequences, right? No one at Facebook is malevolent, but the incentives are misaligned, right? Like Facebook makes more money when you consume more content. People enjoy engaging with things that elicit emotional reactions. And the more anger that they get exposed to, the more they interact and the more they consume. And obviously this makes sense, right? I mean, if you're one of these people who gets brainwashed by social media, right? You're going through these posts, you're constantly seeing these political ideologies or whatever, and it's drawing in higher watch times or like higher, I guess, screen times out of you, that's good for Facebook because obviously, the Facebook model is simple. A, get people on your platform and using it. B, sell their information to advertisers for profit. C, sit back and let the profit roll in. That's really the main thing. The more ads that you consume, the more money Facebook makes. The longer you spend on the website consuming content, the more money Facebook makes. The more that you spend time on their platform, the less money that their competitors make. Obviously, very big incentives to keep you on their platform. But of course, at the same time, they're not balancing enough with what could be getting posted on there and drawing people back onto their platform, right? It's not like a lot of these people who are becoming politically brainwashed or whatever through social media are watching, Chef Gordon Ramsay yell at people in a kitchen or something like that. They're watching hardcore political shit, that's giving them ideologies and teaching people bad things, misinformation, things like that. These are real threats. Are the threats sometimes misinterpreted or over-exaggerated? To a certain extent, yes, but that doesn't mean that they're not threats. There's still something to take seriously, and I mean, for Facebook to kind of ignore these problems and just overlook them as if they don't matter is not only dangerous and irresponsible, but it's kind of fucked in general because a lot of these employees apparently do care. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these people who are lower down on the leadership rungs or whatever, they care about these things that are happening, but they can't really do anything because obviously the people at the top, they're not worried about what the fuck people say on Facebook. If it's not going to get them in trouble or lose them money, what do they care, right? But at the end of the day, it is creating some problems, so I don't know how this is really going to change things. I feel like there's really only two options. Either A, Facebook listens, they see the public reaction to this information, and they make a lot of changes. They could be positive, they could be negative, they could actually work. Maybe they don't, but they make some sort of changes, and we see Facebook operating as kind of, I guess, a new company in a way. Or B, Facebook can do what they traditionally do. They can deflect everything coming at them. In a week, everybody will forget and not care. And then eventually, when they have to testify in front of Congress, they can basically dupe these 75-year-old men by confusing them on the definition of a fucking Finsta account on Instagram, okay? I made a video reacting to that today, by the way, if you didn't know that happened, so go check that out as well. But that's kind of, the situation we've been seeing out of Facebook for a long time, right? Like, some crazy information comes out. People are like, oh, what the fuck? Facebook's bad, man. They don't care. And then, everyone forgets and doesn't give a shit. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up here with a little bit more information here that I kind of wanted to cover. So Evidence of harm, she says, extends to Facebook's Instagram app. One of the Facebook internal studies that you found talks about how Instagram harms teenage girls. One study says 13.5% of teen girls say Instagram makes thoughts of suicide worse. 17% of teen girls say that Instagram makes eating disorders worse. And what's super tragic is Facebook's own research says, as these young women begin to consume this eating disorder content, they get more and more depressed, and it actually makes them use the app more. And so they end up in this feedback cycle where they hate their bodies more and more. Facebook's own research says it is not just the Instagram that is dangerous for teenagers, that it harms teenagers, that it is distinctly worse than other forms of social media. Facebook said just last week it would postpone plans to create an Instagram for younger children. So 13.5% of teen girls say Instagram makes their thoughts of suicide worse, and 17% say it makes their eating disorders worse. So let's say you got 100 million girls. 13.5 million girls are going to tell you, by these numbers and logic, that Instagram alone is making their thoughts of suicide worse. 17 million of them say that it makes eating disorders worse. And what is it called? Anorexia, bulimia, things like this, right? The way that Instagram has morphed the look of an average person is fucking absurd, and it is honestly pretty tragic how it's made people feel about themselves, because obviously people like Kim Kardashian, they get millions of likes on Instagram, but that's not a real person. That's fucking 80 pounds of plastic injected into human flesh, okay? We're talking about toxic chemicals being put into lips and shit. Fuck that, right? People should be proud of who they are. That's the way that I feel, man. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you're happy with yourself. That's what should really matter. But the numbers here, I think, are alarming. I mean, the way that I see it for real, most kids just should not have social media. I don't really see many purposes for kids to have them. And I mean, to be fair, I grew up with social media. I mean, I've had it since I was a kid. I've been watching YouTube for fucking 15, 20 years almost now, right? Since it's existed almost. So these kinds of things have been normalized for, the newer generations, but they are dangerous. And, parents need to do more to make sure their kids aren't getting sucked into these online worlds. But even then, man, shame on Facebook for knowing this shit and continuing to operate the way that they do. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel. Follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to check out Shop Opti down below. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, talking about Facebook and signing out.